There was a moment in the filming which is probably the most exciting and terrifying all at once. There's a fantastic shot of the Brumbies, which is wild horses, being brought into the homestead. And my character, in a seemingly impossible way, is corralling 200 wild horses on his own. Now, the shot is from a helicopter, so when you see the film, you'll see one of the shots from above. So the helicopter scared those horses like you can't believe. And at the same time, they were so excited. These are real wild horses that we just gathered from up there. So they were like 18-year-old, drunken 18-year-old boys just leaving high school, and my horse was in the middle of them, who forgot that he was a trained horse and actually on a salary, and became an 18-year-old drunk at about 2:30 in the morning. And I've never been on a horse going faster in my life. I couldn't see a thing. There was just horses and the noise everywhere. And of course, I'm an actor. I couldn't actually corral 200 horses on my own, so there were pieces of near invisible string going around the outside of the house, right? Thinking that 200 wild horses would look at that string and think, yes, let's not go near those. God forbid. So halfway, I actually thought it was a good idea too, right? But halfway around the house,
String will work.
a couple of those rebellious horses decided, you know what, we can break through that string. And out of the corner of my eye, through the dust, about 100 horses were flying off. It actually took us about 2 days to recover them all. The other half dutifully went the right way, including my horse went the right way. And when the dust cleared, I was in a space about half of the width of this room, between a building and a fence of the corral. And as the dust cleared, my horse was heaving and I was so excited. And I looked up, and kind of where those 10 cameras are were 100 wild horses deciding, stuff the corral, I'm going to join my mates out there. And they were thundering towards me at a gallop. And it was kind of like the running of the bulls, because there was nowhere else for them to go but to trample right over me and my horse, and they would have done it. My horse immediately reared up, and I kind of hunkered him down so his chin was there so he couldn't move. And I actually have a copy of the tape of me swearing like there's no tomorrow, thinking my life was over. And I think, Baz, you were mentioned in there somewhere in a fairly negative light. And like just as I opened my eyes, the horses went sort of on either side and ran off. I jumped off my horse. My horse bolted off too. And as I said, it took us 2 days to recover them. But literally, today, I feel like I have a second chance at life. We would quite often start a scene by sitting around on cane chairs, sipping tea. It was very civilized. It was fantastic.
Yes. We didn't shoot till like 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Too much hassle.
But I remember I asked, funnily enough, our first assistant director was an Englishman, Simon.
I saw him last night.
And I said, Simon, mate, for me it feels so normal. So I feel so at home working with an Australian crew. There's a real feeling of family, of togetherness. We're not big in Australia on hierarchies. We're not big on authoritarian figures. It's always egalitarianism wins the day. And I said, what's the difference? And he said, you know why I love an Australian crew? He said, one of the grips, we were just laying a track, and it was in one of the lagoons. And so he'd come out of the lagoon and he was laying the track, and these guys work very fast, of course, working against light and sunsets, all that thing. And he looked down on his leg, and he had no fewer than about 200 leeches all over his legs, right? He was wearing shorts. You guys know what I mean by leeches? A leech? Yeah? No? Yeah, they stick on your skin and they suck your blood, and they won't get off until you put a lighter to them, right?
A giant vampire worm.
Yeah, a vampire worm. There's about 200 leeches on his leg, and he looked down, an Englishman, and he goes, mate, your leg, you got leeches. And he looked down and he goes, oh yeah. And he goes, quick, get them off. He goes, no mate, I've got to lay this track first. He said that was like an Australian crew. My other story was at 6:30 in the morning, my son had been sleeping with me, and we had 300 tents, a few caravans, we had a bar, of course, and we had some fireplaces littered around. And at 6:30 in the morning, I looked out, And David Gulpilil, one of the great Australian actors that has ever been, he plays the grandfather in the movie. You may know him from Walkabout, Crocodile Dundee. David Gulpilil had woken up in the morning and at 6:30 had already caught 3 catfish from the river, was cooking them on a fire, and there was my son at 6:30 eating catfish straight off a stick with David Gulpilil. And I thought, how on earth am I ever going to get my son to go to school? What could ever top this situation? But I kind of introduced that as a way of saying it was a profound thing to work with and so closely with Aboriginal actors on a story which they're proud of and a story which they had a massive part of. And that was, and also members of the Stolen Generation itself. It anchored the whole movie and made it so much more profound than I think I could have ever imagined.